Hello and welcome to The Magic of with Paul Rothman and my spectacularly special guest, Mr. Mark Bowden. He is a behavioural expert. Hard to say, get my mouth around that one. Body language. He was also, and probably still is, because we're always an actor. If we were an actor, we're still an actor. I say we. He is a director and a thoroughly good fellow. He's in Toronto, I believe. Thank God I got that right, in Canada. My geography is working for me. Here he is, Mark Bowden. Hello, Mark.
Hey, Paul. How you doing? It's been a long time. Well, not a long time since I haven't seen you because, we're together on Facebook and, I catch up with you there. Face to face, I don't know, it was probably Primrose Hill sometime, a long time back.
Yeah. How long, when were you there?
Well, I kept flying back now and again to do bits of work and celebrate birthdays, sometimes with a picnic on Primrose Hill. And but it would be many years ago since I actually saw you in the real flesh. Yeah. So we'd meet up. I get an email. We're having a picnic on Primrose Hill. Lovely to see you. And I'd pop up. It was all. In fact, every time you were there, it was always a gorgeous day with the family. Yeah. It never rained. Yeah. It's that's the great thing about Primrose Hill. If you don't go there too often,
it never rains.
Statistically, the weather can be quite good.
So I met Mark. It goes back to my drama school days, and Mark's quite a young fellow. So drama school was quite a long time ago. So you must have been very young.
I was pretty young.
You were.
What year did I meet you?
So, gosh, I have a very bad concept of years and dates. So, when did I graduate from drama school? God, I was about 24. 99, 98.
Okay.
I left. But I was
then I probably met you when I was about 20. I was probably about 28 then.
It was probably around 97, say. I don't know.
Oh, if it was 97, yeah. I was 27.
And you were directing me. No, we did some workshops. First of all, I think we did some movement workshops, and I believe you studied. Did you study with Lecoq?
Yeah, movements? So I studied with Jacques Lecoq, Philippe, Gaulier, Mark Bowden. I mean, all the kind of big league names of visual movement. Total theatre was one of the frameworks that was put around what we were doing at the time. Visual theatre. Really, we just say making stories out of moving pictures. Making stories out of pictures.
Right.
Was what we called it.
We learned how to balance the room. Very important. Yeah. For people who don't know, what is that, Mark?
Yeah, so balancing the room. So it's rather like imagine the space that a performers might perform on, and imagine that it's a flat table, but it's on a kind of a central kind of needle and pivoting around.
Yeah.
For anybody just listening, you can't see the great image that I'm making for all the YouTube viewers around that. And there is obviously, if you imagine that, there's obviously the weight that you could put on one area and the other end would tip up. Mm-hmm. And what you can equate that with is emotional weight, which means you can balance out a big chorus of people with one protagonist, because the emotional weight of the protagonist can be equal to the emotional weight of the chorus, the group of people combined. But it does then mean if the protagonist moves around, the chorus has to move to compensate that and to balance it out, or the whole stage kind of tips around. Yeah. Obviously not really, but it's just a way of thinking that means you have a model for creating movement and action that is connected to the emotional content of the performance as well.
Yeah. I mean, and it sounds a bit wanky, as the expression goes.
Yeah.
But
it looks fantastic.
It looks fantastic. It really, it is fantastic, because I remember it implicitly. And when you watch the thing, it's the strangest experience, because you genuinely see it. It's like a plate on a needle, with the needle in the middle, and everyone's standing on one side of the plate, and one person can become lighter or heavier, and you can actually see it happen. It's brilliant, actually. It's a brilliant exercise. And I think I remember doing something, and I think it was you, or it was someone you worked with as well, who trained with you, was there.
Could be Dave Brydell.
Dave Brydell, yeah.
So Dave is now the dean of acting at one of the acting schools in LA, University.
Oh, wow.
UCLA, maybe, or something like that.
Oh, I'll have to check him out. Look him up.
Check him out. Go find him.
Yeah.
Go find him. Look him up, David Brydell.
I think he said, if you're complaining about this, one of the exercises was you would have to be cheese, but decide which type of cheese. It wasn't just generic. Camembert was particularly difficult.
Right. Yes. If you complain about the actual good stuff that we were doing, we take you back to the ridiculousness of pretending to be a tree. If you go, God, I didn't join acting school to do all this balancing out the stage. It's like, okay, I'll give you your worst nightmare. Go and stand in the corner and wave like a tree.
But this stuff, but this stuff was brilliant. It was actually brilliant, and it definitely stayed with me. All the movement stuff and unlocking sort of physicality was, amazing, and I highly recommend it. But then later on, you directed me in the Three Musketeers.
Yeah, which was a great show, as I recall it. I mean, it's a long time back.
Yeah,
but I remember having a lot of fun. I remember never seeing, in the history of theatre, so many rapiers on swords, on rapier swords on stage at the same time. Many people wielding two of them at a time and a dagger.
Oh yeah, it was brilliant. It was the most fun I think we had. Drama school was one of the best plays, and it went down a storm. Should have been picked up by a Hollywood studio at that point, and we weren't. But no.
Yes, it was a lot of fun, and just everybody. I think that came about. Brian, his second name,
Brian
just
Astbury.
Escaped me. Astbury, who unfortunately departed from us this last year, or just early this year, I think. Yeah, it was a great shame.
He was the head of acting, or head of the school.
He was head of acting. At Mountview, and had been one of the founders of the Market Theatre Johannesburg. I mean, groundbreaking guy in theatre. Mm-hmm. Anyway, very early on, I think when I was about 22 or 23, he said, "Do you want to come to Mountview and direct some shows?" And he kind of made his decision that I was going to come, and he didn't know me at all, but he kind of heard of me, and he gave me that great break to be able to experiment with theatre and young performers, and a great talent spotter. Anyway, I think what had happened is your year at Mountview had been so into fight, and I think had progressed you were just bonkers. But the whole group were just bonkers for fight.
We just started stage fighting. They'd just started it there with certification and all of that stuff. And clearly you were going great guns for it, and to use one weapon analogy, and just loving it. And there was just a super high level across the whole of the group that Musketeers was an obvious kind of fit. Yeah, for you as a team. Yeah, it was brilliant, and I mean, because I played Planchet, who was D'Artagnan's servant, so it was it was lots of
getting smacked around the head,
and
So you always need. Whenever I would have directed a show, I was always looking for somebody who looked like they could take a beating, and would and when you say, can you just if that character just smacks your head into that wall and then onto the table, can we do that? And then they'll just keep doing that until you fall on the ground. you got no lines in this bit. We just want to bring you on just to... Paul, can you just come on and just get smacked around a bit and then leave? We just need a bit of comic relief at this point.
Right. I'm glad you got the comic relief and you know, the inscrutable comic timing. I thought. It was great.
It is the thing of being able to take a hit, or all comic acting is about. Can you be the person who will show the audience what it's like to be in a socially unacceptable situation, and be there for real, or or real enough that it's a good enough illusion for the audience to go, oh, that's painful. I wouldn't like that. Not only does it look like it hurts, but it's terribly embarrassing. It's like, but he's taking it with enough pleasure that I'll watch this because he seems to be. There's a certain level of like he's coming back for more. He's enough of an idiot.
He's doing it for us.
Doing it for us, yeah. So you need, it's not anybody can do that because not anybody will allow themselves to, even really good actors will allow themselves to be viewed by the audience in that way. Give the audience that pleasure at their expense, because that's what it really is. You're giving them pleasure at your expense. Like you don't get anything out. The idiot never gets redeemed at the end. They don't get the girl, or the guy. No. They don't win the money. No. They don't defeat the villain. They just turn up too late at the end. Right? What happened? Oh, we solved the whole thing. Oh,
covered in cow pats, generally.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So all credit to you for being the person that I thought could weather that storm.
Yeah. So, how did Brian actually find you? You said he found you, question. And then he just you were suddenly there.
Yeah, that's a good question. I honestly don't know. I have no idea.
What were you doing? No idea. What were you doing at the time? Because you're an actor. You're an actor.
Well, at that point I was. Yes, right. At that point I was. I mean, when you say I'm an actor now, no, I don't act at all. I'm kind of done with that in that sense. But at the time, I'd just come off. You know what I'd done? I'd just come off doing, so I'd had 3 jobs as an actor up to that point, professional jobs. I'd done Trestle Theatre Company, which was Europe's kind of top mask theatre company, really phenomenal company, and the company that had even really got me into the idea of doing theatre in the first place, because I'd seen a picture of a show of theirs in the Observer Colour Supplement when I was, I think, 16, and seen this picture. It's just one picture, and it looked like a live cartoon, and I just thought that looks good. I'd like to do that. I'd really like to. That looks like something I should do. Just looks such amazing fun. It was a picture of a show called Top Story, which actually turned out my best friend had written. He wasn't my best friend at the time. He became my best friend later on, and my best man, and Sean Prendergast. He'd actually written that show for Trestle. Anyway,
right.
I auditioned, and I was doing, like a lot of kids, I was doing some drama and acting, and I was fairly badly dyslexic, and so acting was. I was quite good at creating visual images and performing. Or at least, actually, I wasn't that good. I wasn't actually that good. There were people who were way, way better than me at that point. I had no training. It's just people said I was good. People said I was good, and they would constantly say I was bad at a lot of other stuff. So I kind of went, you know what, I should do this thing that people say I'm good at rather than all the stuff that they're constantly saying I'm bad at. So I kind of gravitated towards it. I auditioned for drama schools. I got into a bunch, but didn't have the money to go. And I got into Middlesex Polytechnic to do performing arts. And I went, okay, well, I'm going to go and do that. Turns out one of the lecturers there was a guy called John Wright, who was the director of Trestle Theatre Company. He'd founded it, and all the members of Trestle had been to Middlesex. They had been founded out of that. So this company that at the age of 16 I'd seen a picture of, I was now at the place that company was founded. It was now about 7 years old at that point. Obviously, the members had left. John was still there. I was training with him, and I remember one day doing mask theatre with him in the first year there, and he took me aside and he said, you can do this. You're really good at this. You can do this. I was like, oh, okay, all right. So I kind of went, I better do this then. Better do this. It turns out he was running Trestle. Anyway, I studied everything I could from him. He sent me off to study with a whole load of other people: Philippe Gaulier, Monica Pagna, Jacques Lecoq, Dario Fo.
Wow.
The major people of within the history of both kind of ancient and modern visual theatre. I joined Trestle Theatre Company before I graduated, so I got a job with them before I graduated. Anyway, so I went on tour with them, doing a show called The Edge, which again Sean Prendergast had written for them. And Sean actually I'd met about a year beforehand at a drama festival, because he climbed up the outside of the building I was in and came in through the bedroom window. I didn't know him at that point, but he climbed in through my bedroom.
As you do.
Bedroom window, kind of went, what's going on here? And anyway, that's a whole different story.
This is in England, of course, where we don't have guns because
yeah, exactly.
It would have been a different case in Los Angeles, I think.
Exactly. So then, after Trestle, I got a job in the West End.
Hang on a minute. Why was he climbing through? You can't just say he. Just
you want me to tell?
Yeah.
He was with another lecturer of mine called Hugh Thomas, who really kind of was one of the founders of stand-up comedy in alternative cabaret, the movement of folk singing to stand-up, modern kind of stand-up in London. Ran a venue called the King's Head in Crouch End. He was with him, and Hugh said, you got to meet Mark. So Sean was like, oh, okay. And so they found out where I was staying, and the only way they could get attention was to kind of climb up the outside of the building to the second floor and come in through the bedroom window.
Right. So you saw Hugh. So you knew Hugh, did you? I
saw Sean first.
Right.
And he was like, hello, Mark. I was like, hello. Oh. and then Hugh kind of popped his face in. He was like, oh, hello, Hugh. He goes, this is Sean. You two have got to meet.
And then it was drinks and...
And then it was drinks and singing blues and playing guitars and having laughs and...
Right. Good. I just wanted to check.
Yeah. No, you should check that out.
Yeah, I couldn't let that go past.
Not that there's anything wrong with any of that, but you'd want to check that kind of thing out. So
yes.
So I did The Edge with Trestle. It was fantastic because it was like playing in the band that had got you into music. It was like,
right.
Wow, this is the thing that I saw at 16 where I went, that'd be really good. I'd love to do that. That looks great. And it was just a still picture. And now I'm on stage, traveling all over Europe and the world and being in this show, Mask Show. It's a great show. Anyway, after that, I went straight in because Philippe Lloyd, who you'll know from being director of Mamma Mia.
Oh yeah,
both the stage show and the film.
Yeah.
Me and Sean were doing a cabaret act, and we'd come up with this cabaret act called Celebrity Bread, where the idea was we got a white loaf, quite a spongy white loaf, like I guess in the US you'd call it Wonder Bread kind of stuff. The really kind of right. Spongy stuff. In England, in the UK, it would be Mother's Pride.
We don't even eat that stuff anymore.
Yeah. Okay, that's good.
But they do in America.
Because here's a really good use for it.
Right.
What would happen is we'd get members of the audience up to give us the name of a celebrity, mm-hmm. and we would model that celebrity out of bread. and then the audience would have to guess the celebrity. and if they guessed it wrong, we paid a forfeit of some kind. And we'd also, so anyway, the forfeits escalated to the point where I was almost naked on the cabaret stage. We weren't good at modeling celebrities out of bread. Anyway, it was quite funny, and Philippe Lloyd came to me afterwards. Actually took me to said, "Will you come to an audition? I'm doing this show at the Royal Court." And so she mentions the Royal Court, and I've studied stuff that went on at the Royal Court, and knew what I did as a performer. And I was like, she said, "I'd like you to come and audition for this show." And I said, "Yeah, no, you got the wrong actor. You totally got the wrong actor." Because the idea of me being at the Royal Court was that was just ridiculous. She said, "No, I think you're the right person for it." So I said, "Okay." So I thought, yeah, great. I'll come along and do this audition. And I get there and I read for it. And she said, "This part will involve you running around on the stage naked at the Royal Court." She said, "Would you be okay with that?" And I was like, "Yeah, I don't see a problem with that." I didn't know really what I thought about it at the time. I was just like, yeah, whatever. So and then what happens is she said, "Oh, good." And she handed me her own copy of the script. She said, "There you go, take that away with you." So I leave the audition going, silly audition, Royal Court. How am I going to? And I'm going back on the tube, and I've got her copy of the script. It's got Philippe Lloyd written on it. It's got a whole bunch of her notations in there as well.
Wow.
And I go, why have I got her script? That's a bit odd. It's a bit odd. Anyway, I get a call when I get back, and they're going, "Yeah, Philippe wants you to do the show." Anyway, so I ended up at the Royal Court doing 6 Degrees of Separation with Stockard Channing.
Wow.
At the Royal Court, and then the West End for about eight months.
Amazing.
So I did that, and then I went and did the show the Italian tour that you ended up
Il
doing for
Palchetto
us.
Stage.
Il Palchetto Stage, doing Waiting for Godot. Came back from that. And there was this call from Brian going, "I want you to come in and do some directing." And after directing the first show there, I did a devised piece for the MAs in acting with Tracy in it, who eventually became Tracy Thompson, my wife, co-writer of Truth and Lies.
And Tracy was postgrad?
An actress. Was a postgrad there.
And I was friendly with her at Mountview. We were all at Mountview.
Okay.
And she directed me in Robinson Crusoe.
That's right.
Which was
so there's a lot of...
So
it's a very small...
Yeah.
It's a very small world. Anyway.
Yeah, carry on.
A few weeks into directing this show that I was devising with them, it was called Brian Will Never Notice, because the idea is that Brian would never notice what a con this whole idea was of me coming into Mountview and directing a show. It's like, we'll call it Brian Will Never Notice, because we're going to totally con him that we've done any work and we have any talent. Okay. Just 2 weeks into this, Brian comes to me and says, "So I hear it's going great. So do you want to be head of movement here at Mountview?" I was like, "No, not really," because at that point I was like, I quite like the acting thing, and I quite like being on stage and doing it. So I said, "No, I'm happy to come in and do some bits and pieces, but I don't want to be here full time."
Yeah.
So and so I ended up doing bits and pieces at Mountview for years. It was a great place. Brian was extraordinary. He then moved to East 15, and I went with him to East 15 and did some stuff there. And again, there's some great story about doing a thing with Brian where the bomb squad ended up getting called in.
I vaguely remember this.
Yeah, it was in the papers. It was in the papers.
Yeah,
it was in the papers. I was devising a show out of a book called The Secret Agent by Joseph Conrad.
Right.
who of course wrote Heart of
Darkness.
Yeah, and the project was, from Brian's point of view, is can you create a show out of a book that has no rights attached to it? So basically, it's cheap.
Right.
Great idea.
Yeah.
It's cheap because the rights have run out, and the group chose Secret Agent, which is a great story. And we've been given a nearby old derelict big house to do this show in, because again, it was free. It was derelict and it was free. We had the right to go onto the land and into the house for some reason. Anyway, and I said, okay, we're not going to spend, we're going to do this for free. We've got a free location, we've got free content, and we're not going to spend anything on anything. And then you've created a piece of theatre where nobody can say, yeah, but we haven't got the money. It's like you can create stuff you don't need money. Okay. So, I mean, it's nice if you have it, but it doesn't necessarily do you any good. So we created the set and everything out of just old chairs and tables that were around. And of course, the Secret Agent has this bomb in it because the main character becomes an agent provocateur, a kind of almost like a Manchurian candidate agent provocateur, and explodes a bomb. So we had to make the bomb. And so we found 2 cans of old photocopying fluid and like some baseboards, some electronic baseboards, and we had some tape and we had some wiring. So we built this this thing. And the whole show kind of peaked with this kind of pile of chairs being made and the bomb being put on top and what have you. Anyway, after the last show, we just, disappeared out of the building, and that was that. Well, somebody passing the building had a look in there and went, there's a bomb in.
Oh my
There's
God.
a whole pile of chairs with a flipping big bomb on top of it. I mean, it looked like a proper, improvised explosive device. And the bomb squad were brought in.
Wow.
And yeah.
But of course, I mean, that wasn't your fault. Maybe it is your fault. I don't know.
Well,
is that your fault?
I did go and apologize to
the Queen,
Brian, the Queen. Yeah. And he just laughed. He loved it. He loved it because he was such a, he was a total rebel before his time. Imagine it doing, helping found the Market Theatre Johannesburg. So this was theatre with black actors in it. This was in South Africa. This
During
was revolutionary.
apartheid.
During apartheid, yeah, of course. Yeah. And that was the measure of this guy.
Yeah.
He had by now he's got zero fear.
No, he was definitely. I had a strange relationship with him, but he was definitely a button pusher. He would push your buttons. He would do things to try and get a reaction or not. So sometimes you never knew what he was feeling. He gave me some terrible crits because we used to have to go in for crits, and I was a bit of a rebel, and I got in trouble quite a lot. But eventually I pulled it together. But one of the things that you made me think about specifically is when we were working together at Mountview and all the sort of movement stuff that you were doing and everything like that. It was at the time of Theatre de Complicité.
Yeah.
And I think exactly at the time what they did Street of Crocodiles.
Sure.
And that was one of the influences that I think you talked about. And
yes. So the Complicité people, Simon McBurney, Annabelle Arden, Marcello Magni, they'd all studied with Philippe Gaulier. And that's actually where they got the name Complicité, because Gaulier would constantly talk about, and for anybody who doesn't know Gaulier, the only reason we have Sacha Baron Cohen is really because of Philippe Gaulier. Sacha Baron Cohen's work is basically Gaulier's thesis of provoking people with the grotesque and taking it to the very edge of tipping over the edge of acceptability in the face of authority.
Right.
And doing it via addressing yourself as the buffoon, the grotesque, the extreme. So it's very hard to push back it's very hard to push back at that character because they're already such an extreme. They're already such a buffoon.
Yeah.
You know. Anyway, so the Complicité founders had studied with Gaulier and Lecoq and Pagna, same people as me. I'd worked with them as well on some other pieces. I think a piece called, we were experimenting with a piece called The Bone and something else, I can't remember. So we'd worked together. And I'd seen The Visit at the National Theatre my first introduction to them was The Visit at the National Theatre, which was a good number of years before Street of Crocodiles, which I think got them an Olivier, or maybe the Visit got them an Olivier as well.
It was incredible.
Anyway, yeah. So it just so happened. What happened was is all of us who were part of this visual theatre stuff that was a bit avant-garde and out there suddenly became a real commodity. Yeah. And people wanted that. And so you got stuff like The Lion King and way more visual. That the visual storytelling came back. And the script writer or the literariness of theatre started to not be at the forefront so much anymore. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but they were a great thing. I remember doing a lot of stuff with Marcello Magni, a brilliant comedic actor, and I used to say just getting in his slipstream. There was no way you could perform next to him or in front of him. Mm-hmm. You just had to get in his slipstream. He was so fast, so agile, so verbally dexterous and physically dexterous in his verbal and physical improvisation. All you could do was just be in the tailwind of it. It was quite huge lesson to just be in that tailwind and just go, don't even just you can stay in the blast of his jets and stay alive. Just that's good enough. Don't try and be the jet next to him. Be rather like, trying to be on stage with Robin Williams. Yeah. So why would you bother? Why would you bother?
In fact, I did see recently a Michael Parkinson interview with Robin Williams and Stephen Fry. And it's quite weird. And Stephen Fry's kind of holding his own. But it's a different energy going on over there, the Robin Williams energy.
Totally.
And it's interesting talking about this with you as well, because I can feel the excitement. Like you still plug into that excitement when you think about this whole frisson of theatre and the fundamentals of what theatre is actually. And the direct, here I've done Groundlings, and as we've talking about it, I can see the direct line. Yeah. Why I even got interested in that, even subconsciously, because it ties back to what you're just saying about Sacha Baron Cohen and character and fearlessness. You being on stage naked, and that wasn't even the issue, and just that. It's incredible. It's fundamental baseline of what theatre is,
good theatre.
Good theatre, yeah.
Good theatre,
yeah, and yeah. I mean, we're specifically talking about good theatre and what makes good theatre, perhaps even more so. What is the thing? Why is it that when you said the secret agent, the Conrad. At East 15 with no money and nothing. It's that idea of working in a black box with just actors and making something amazing and then thinking, well, we'll get a bit of costume. That might add something to it. But it's fundamentally so strong anyway.
Yeah, it doesn't need it.
It doesn't need it. And Complicité, when I saw Street of Crocodiles, I think I was crying at the end. It was unbelievable. Mm-hmm. It was, and that totally influenced it, and it's so connected to what we did in class with movement, etc.
Well, for me, it's about, obviously theatre's an art, and for me, it comes down to the purpose of art, which is my idea, my feeling, my philosophy is the there's just one purpose to art, and that's to remind you that you're alive, and that's it. And so if I go to the theatre, you know, I don't know when I'll next get it. I don't go to the theatre a lot because I get upset by it, but because it is quite often an anesthetic, not an aesthetic.
Right.
And that's a really important. It's a really important word. That aesthetic is also, you know, is related to the word anesthetic, that puts you to sleep and the other wakes you up.
Wow.
And so the idea of art is that it wakes you up again, and you go and you see again, and you feel again, and you touch again, and you see again, and you listen again, and you go, God, I'd forgotten I was a living, breathing human being. I've been kind of walking around, just stuff's been happening to me and whatever. But I saw that, you know, that event happened on stage, and suddenly I went, I could do something, or God, that's a feeling I haven't had for a long time. And, you know, it wakes you up, and it wakes you up with that jolt of I'm alive right now. So yeah, that's why I get excited about it. Still, when I recall some of the stuff that I've done, I don't get that excited when I'm in the theatre,
right?
Because it's, you know, maybe I have very specific tastes. I'm a harsh critic as well, and I just sit there as a coach and a critic, and I just go, oh, you shouldn't have done that. Should have. That person should be there. Oh, dead stage, nothing happening. Come on. Get on to the next bit. You know, what happens next?
Yeah.
You know, why is there nothing happening?
Right. Do you get that same feeling from film?
No, because I don't understand. I don't know how to make it.
Right.
I don't know how to make it at any really high level. Mm-hmm. And so I can really get absorbed. It's not that some films won't bore me, but I'm not able to sit there at that high level of criticism, you know, real understanding of how it's the machinery that's going on, and how the machine could have worked better to remind people that they're alive.
So do you see any theatre where you can step off, where you can step away from where that critical mind has switched off? Okay, they've got it. I'm with them now. I'm on board.
Yeah, probably the last time was, I went to see Love in Las Vegas.
Is that the Cirque du Soleil? The
Cirque du Soleil Beatles piece. There were some elements of that where I could switch. I was absorbed by it. But to the other side of that, I went to see Hamilton.
Didn't do it for you?
I was like, don't do that. Where are you going? What are you singing? What are you singing for now? What? How did the emotional stakes get high enough that you just break into song right now? What? I didn't see that in the action.
Okay, yeah.
Seeing people walking on and walking off. What's going on? Where are you going?
Controversial, but fair. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. So your journey post Mountview, post East 15. I mean, I can see the lines. I can see the direction. And you became a behavioral expert. Body language, how looking at people. I mean, you know, I can sit here now. I'm like, am I reacting the right way? Have I drifted off? He's noticed. You know, have I? I'm giving off signals now. No, I don't care. But that, you know, it's a direct line. You can see you're looking at movement. You look at physicality. You look at communication through theatre, and that takes you into this next stage. Or did it? Was that the next stage? Was that the next jump?
So I was always obsessed with visual images, as you've heard, and movement, and how the body moves, and how that connects to psychology, and all the acting training that I would deliver to others was always from a movement point of view. I was always interested in, to move emotionally, move physically first. It's not that that's the way the body and mind work, but it's a really good intervention. It's the most economical intervention. So you can think about it if you like to get the emotion. That sounds like something a philosopher would do. We're actors, and so we need to do action in order to trigger feelings in us and the audience, not thinking. That's philosophers. So I was often trying to get actors away from doing philosophy and doing action.
Yes, in fact, I remember learning lines, and that struggle of learning lines, and then you would say, "Yeah, but your action was to pick up the sword. You need the sword. That's what you need to do." And then the lines just take care of themselves.
Yeah,
you just need to pick up the sword.
Yeah, I mean, Gaulier used to talk about the action being the spaghetti and the lines being the sauce.
Right.
And so get the spaghetti sorted out, and the sauce just sits on top. So run the action, learn the lines, and just say the lines on top of the action.
Yeah.
And they will be, so long as they're good lines. I mean, you need good writing. You can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. It's rather like doing comedy. I get these TV scripts in for doing TV comedies at the time, and sometimes I was a bit mean sometimes, which may be why I didn't work so much. And I would literally go through and go. So I'm just wondering where the jokes are. Because I'm pretty good at comedy, and I haven't found the jokes yet. So here's what I'm thinking: is I'll just do silly stuff while saying this, and I'll get you some. I will get you some laughs, but I don't think I can get any with these particular words because there are no jokes written.
And it's very much like the philosophy in improv, and certainly character-based improv, where it was point of view, particularly emotion, physicality, stage picture, those elements. If you came on with that, the scene kind of informs itself. If you don't have that, if you come on with a strong physicality, the other actor you get so much from that physicality before, perhaps with an emotion, before you open your mouth, before the first word is said. You can just look at eye contact, physicality, point of view, emotion, and the other person instinctively understands. There's no problem. Right.
So they make assumptions. If you have strong action, the audience, a strong visual representation, the audience will unconsciously make assumptions around what's happening, what the relationships are, what the feelings are. I think I'm just going to lose my headphones and my power is going off here. So I'm going to switch over sound here a second. Bear with me.
If I had a lot of advertisers now, this would be the perfect moment to
hold on there
to go into a little advert.
There we go. I'm back. I can hear you now.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. It's good. Yeah. It feels real now.
Yeah. So, so you can create the framework, the frame, and then the words sit on top of that. And then what is interesting is the audience now have either a congruency or incongruency around what they expected you might say and what you actually say, which means you can create a much higher level of drama or understanding. Either you say something and they go, that so fits what I expected, or they go, that is weird, or they laugh, or they cry because of the discrepancy between the two.
Mm-hmm.
So we often used to talk about it in terms of contra action. You'd find you could purposely go out to find the contra action to what you're saying to see what would happen. And often we do that with no real care for what the writer was trying to do, and just go, what can we make out of this? Mm-hmm. I'm not sure in hindsight whether that was the best way of going about serving writers, but then we weren't into the whole serving the writer thing. It's like we would just go, most of these writers are dead now anyway. Who cares? Who cares? And we all know you must serve the writer. They're dead. They're dead. It doesn't matter. They're dead now. Well, but they must be served. No, if they wanted to be served properly, then they shouldn't have given their rights to somebody who will sell those rights to me to perform it, because I can do what I like with it now because I'm paying some money. It's my purchase of this work of art to now do something, a piece of modernism, which means I might monkey around with it in order to turn it into something else. Now, of course, you can't do that with on a professional level with Beckett. Beckett was interesting because he's a postmodern, one of the first postmodern writers, and he'd already worked this out.
Right.
And he'd gone, no, I'm going to leave specific instructions as to how everything must be, and I'm going to send a member of my family to all professional shows, and if it isn't done right, you're off.
Right.
So the Beckett family have become kind of synonymous with axing shows because you have done something potentially more interesting,
right,
with Beckett.
But there's only a certain amount of room with certain writers to do that, say. I mean, would you do that with a Mamet play?
I'd do whatever I like. I mean, I don't...
But would there be... Would it be... I mean, I suppose as I think about it, you update... I mean, if you think about Sexual Perversity in Chicago, which probably... super controversial now. I don't know if people will get up in arms. Everyone's getting up in arms about anything now, which was kind of the point of theatre, I thought. Anyway,
yeah. Well, maybe it shows you how badly theatre has failed.
Yeah. Well, there ain't no theatre now. So
right.
We've hit the bottom.
Probably about right then, isn't it? Serves you right.
Right. Okay.
Serves you right. There's a good reason I don't do theatre anymore.
Right.
It's pretty functionless now.
Right. Is there a way? Is there a way back for it?
Yeah. Put it on the streets where it first started out.
Right.
do stuff that people actually care about. That not that do stuff for that. Do stuff that reminds people that they're alive.
Well, to be the devil's advocate, I mean, people love Hamilton.
Yeah, they do love Hamilton,
and that has been an instigator of getting people to theatre and thinking about theatre, I think. And
yeah, so one outlier does not.
Okay. But just
all right. No parsnips with me.
So, coming back, say, to the Mamet, that was updated as About Last Night in the 80s, and it was very, very different to the play. Actually, so that proves your point. They changed it.
Yeah,
they updated.
Yeah, they changed it. They changed it. When it's like the modern film, it's exactly what modern studios do. It's very difficult to launch anything new, so they take something old and they update it, but they keep the title because the title is comfortable,
right? And
because they want to open on a weekend and make the money back,
yeah,
or whatever you have to do on Netflix now to, or whatever channel that you're launching the film on to go for you to keep your job as the producer on. As the line producer at the studio.
Yeah.
So, what's the best way of doing it? And it to an extent it used to be, well, I just get Tom Cruise in it because if I get Tom Cruise, it means I make my money back on the first day or whatever. And now it's a little bit more, let's name the film after a breakfast cereal because people recognize that. Not that I think anybody has named a film after a breakfast cereal, but it'd probably be a good idea.
Pretty close to it. I mean, Pirates of the Caribbean or...
Right. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Caribbean, yeah, whatever. But actually, where that's probably most visible is in the musical. That is the musical of the film. So we've got Pretty Woman, Back to the Future, blah 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 blah. Ad nauseum, destroy all our memories of great movies and turn them into.
Things where people suddenly start singing for no reason.
Yeah, but just kind of, I would argue that Hamilton is a really great musical and really does something a little bit different. But these other ones are just, they are just using the name. Let's use that. They're probably fine. They're okay. But who cares?
They keep some people working, and they give some people something to do in New York on the evening, and they went to the theatre, and yes, I agree. Hamilton is maybe a bit of an outlier on this very aggressive thesis that I have, which is theatre. Theatre deserves itself at the moment.
Yeah. So okay, so you're observing. Does this instigate the first book? I mean, there's a few books that you've written.
Yeah. So kind of what happened is when I came to Canada, we moved to Canada to have our first kid, Lex, because we could, and it was we thought let's have a change, let's see what we can do, have a bit of an adventure, and I decided, what happened. So I was doing some acting here in Canada. I did some stuff for Disney. And I started doing some bits of TV, and I got a role on the Murdoch Mysteries. It's quite popular. I never watched it.
Yeah.
So I got a role on something that I don't watch, that I'd never want to be in. I'd never want to be in.
Yeah.
And it was the part of a desk sergeant. Yeah. So will you be the desk sergeant? And it's kind of my first TV role in Canada. And I said to my agent, no, I don't want to do that. And the agent said, well, you've really got to do it. I mean, you got to pay your dues and to get better TV, you've got to do. And I was like, no, I don't want to do it. I'm not. There's just no point. There's just no point. And then the agent bugged me, and I went, okay, I'll go and do it. And I showed up for the first 2 days of this. I was so bored. It was so boring, and other people hadn't learned their lines, and it's really difficult for me to learn lines because I'm dyslexic. It's really hard. Mm-hmm. It's really hard work. It's painful. It's like stabbing yourself trying to learn just a few lines. And other people were like, they've got their little scripts under the desk, and they, it's like, God, nobody's even trying. And they had, 4 people doing the job of one person that you'd have in the UK. So there wasn't the energy. Mm-hmm. There wasn't the professionalism, and it was never gonna, it was just TV so that you'll watch the adverts in between.
Right.
And I was having a chat with Yannick. Now, I'd already started doing training people in business using these nonverbal skills that I had. Nonverbal influence and persuasion, presentation skills to an extent, but really it was more about, the real joy for me was nonverbal influence and persuasion. So I was already starting that going because, it was a nice way of earning some money and keeping my brain kind of active. Anyway, I go to Yannick and I go, so how much do you make? Like, because this was one of the top actors in Canada. Like, he is the star of a TV show, and he's doing a lot of big bank adverts and stuff like that.
So who is this Yannick? Who?
Yannick, can't remember his second name now.
Right.
Anyway, still a big actor.
Big actor.
Yeah. And I was saying, where'd you live? And I found out you saying I live over there, and I was like, oh, okay. And how much do you earn? It's like, he said, how much do I earn? And I thought to myself, I can't survive on that. I can't. This is the best actor in Canada.
Is this Yannick?
And I just thought to myself, I can't do this. This is pointless. This is pointless. It's not interesting. It's not making any money. And at that point I went, okay, I'm going to focus on nonverbal influence and persuasion, and I'm going to make myself the best known body language person on the planet. I'm going to do that.
And you did. I mean,
I did. Yeah. I was voted number one in the world two in a row.
And it is a genuine thing. And I remember it would have been about 2011, round about then, 10, 11, something like that. And I was doing a big corporate team building event, and I talked to you. How do I pitch this? How do I put it together? And I think the most important thing was bullet points, and not too many. I think it was a list of about 5.
That sounds like my advice. 5 things.
5 things. Get to the
no
point.
No more, and probably only do 3 of them.
Do 3 of them exactly. And it got me the gig. But you were really doing it then, and you were looking. You were at that point. I remember you were doing quite a lot of work. You were talking to a lot of companies. It was interesting work as well. You were quite buzzed by it.
Yeah, it is. It's really interesting work because the bar is quite low, so you can make quite a difference.
Yeah.
People do not have the skills that, I mean, as you probably remember, my abilities in being able to train actors, create action, get an effect for the audience were pretty strong abilities.
Yeah.
So look, there are a whole bunch of actors out there who say, you know, I train people for public speaking and you know, and I know acting. It's like, yeah, kind of you do. kind of.
It's the Ricky Gervais thing, isn't it? It's like his monologue when he was, the Greta Thunberg. You think you guys are so clever. Most of you had less education than Greta Thunberg,
right?
And that's true.
Yeah. Whereas I've really thought about it. I mean, I thought about nothing else for most of my waking hours in a period of time about how does visual action work and how do we change people's minds and remind them they're alive with the movement of the body.
Yep.
I was totally obsessed by it. So when it comes to that and people go, I've done it. I trained as an actor. So I'm now, coaching people in that. So I think I do what you do. It's like, I'm happy to say, yeah, sure. Okay. But there's no way they just don't. They just don't. I really went into the intricate wiring beneath the board to work out how this stuff was put together. And so I think because of that, I've been very successful in that area. And it is engaging. It is interesting. I get to meet some extraordinary people, do some extraordinary work, and do the art that I do, which is how do you change people with movement?
You've looked at it with politicians, and you've worked directly with them. Did you work with the Prime Minister, or
I have worked with
Canada,
some prime ministers.
Yeah, you've
say no more than that. But you can Google it. If you want to. I show up now and again.
Yeah.
I'm just not meant to say it myself.
Right. It's
it would just be bad for my business. If I went around going, I've worked with this person, it would just be, nobody would hire me. Because, there's a bit of a stigma with getting somebody in who might be able to tell you what to do in order to get an effect with the populace.
So it's, but that's an interesting, it's an interesting thing, because we can go back to Margaret Thatcher and how she changed how she speaks from having a very high voice to this very measured
down here.
Yes. Very held.
Yes.
Tony Blair, Bill Clinton.
Yeah.
All these people have been coached.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and very well. In some cases, very well. Thatcher did some brilliant speech writers, well performed, very clear objectives as to what she's trying to get. I mean, you might like what she was trying to get. You might dislike it. You might love her. You might want to have been wiped off the planet. Doesn't really matter. But you cannot doubt that she was formidable. Tony Blair, formidable public speaker. But understand, you can see that he got there. He wasn't born with this thing. You see him, Tony, you see him the first time in Parliament, and, he's shrugging like this. It's the whole thing of what? I'm Prime Minister? Goes grey within about 2 weeks.
Right.
But, after a while, you get somebody who's way more proficient, understands rhetoric,
right,
can speak in sound bites, short bursts, simple images. And suddenly you go, wow, this guy's really connecting. Let's invade.
but where do we lose the authenticity, or is it authentic?
Yeah, I have a real problem with this authentic thing, because I think most people saying the word authentic haven't really kind of looked at what that word might mean. Mm-hmm. Either in the initial psychological world, which was Jung's idea of authenticity, which, if you want to know Jung's idea, because he coined the idea, and it's quite a complex, it's not that simple,
right?
What he came up with. Most people, I think, have when they say authentic, what they're saying is comfortable for them. No effort, comfortable for them, feels like them. And so it kind of lodges back to the idea of the self and personality. And my understanding of self and personality is the personality of the self is made up of many, many different facets. Like a diamond, and you can orientate the diamond to shine one facet more than others at certain points, and it's all you. Look, let me give you an example.
Yeah.
Paul, I think your mum's still around, isn't she? Yeah. When you get, my guess is you get on the phone to your mum now and again. You're a good boy.
I speak to her most days. Yeah.
Okay, lovely, good for you, mate.
She's in London. I'm here.
Yeah.
She's a pal.
Yeah. But my guess is you speak differently to her than you are to me right now.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, which one's you then?
Yeah. Both.
I mean, which one? Both. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Both are you.
Yeah.
But if I heard you speaking like you speak to your mum, I might go, hang on, Paul doesn't speak like that with me. I don't think he's very authentic.
Right.
But that would be a nonsense. That would be a nonsense, because we all shine different facets for different people and circumstances, because it works.
Yeah.
Because we're social mammals, and we must be able to show and amplify or suppress on purpose different aspects. So, to finish this diatribe off, authenticity for me is about choosing what you write of yourself, choosing who you are consciously at certain points, even though some of those choices are uncomfortable.
Right.
They don't feel like you, but they are you. It's just you're not used to shining them that much. Anyway,
right.
There's my thing about
but that's brilliant. That ties into so much that's going on in the world at the moment, because communication is nuanced. Communication is nuanced,
super complex.
Yeah, and nuance is everything.
Yeah.
And context is everything.
Yeah.
And we react, we understand each other through so many little, it's that micro sensibility, little things all the time, readjusting the plane. And in this social media world, nuance is bashed out the door. And so people are writing these essays, which they should just stop. They should stop. Go and write a book, which you've done, because it's more important. Because nobody really, I don't care what you write on Twitter, really, but people do, and then they're cancelled, and then you're
sure.
It's all this, and there's no new, and this reinvention of you said something 20 years ago, or it was no, that's not true. It's actually not true. And so we're in this period now where there is no nuance. Everything is just this absolutism.
Well, I think all we can do is try and make sure we keep our own nuance, and we do that for others, and we're careful around looking at context and trying to work out the ramifications of what we do. And just an example of that for me is okay. So just recently, somebody I know put up on one of the social media channels a logo that they made for a designer, and they made a logo. And they go, here's the work that I've done for these people, and it came up in my feed, and it was the logo was a double lightning strike. Well, so you're already chuckling, and I know why, because you would understand the significance of a double lightning strike.
Yeah.
And I don't even need to show you the image for you to go, they did what? They did what? Anyway, look. So all I did was to send them a private note, just going, look, I've just noticed this logo that you've just done. I really love your work, and this is not a criticism of your work, but I just want, and I know you really care about this stuff, so I just want you to know that for some people, this image already has significance, and quite deep significance for some, but not all. Okay, and the person went, oh my God, thank you for telling me. I just didn't know that, and took it down and redesigned, and it was all good.
Right.
Now, to an extent, I know that same person often publicly takes people to task on similar things.
Right.
And so what they get is they tend to get pushback. Like, don't be, I wasn't trying to offend anybody, yes, but it doesn't matter what you were trying to do; it's offensive. But I know when you deliver criticism in the public sphere, there's social risk involved, and people are designed to fight back.
Uh-huh.
So if I'm to criticize you, Paul, I'm better off pulling you to one side rather than doing it in a public. If I really want to change you,
yeah.
I'm better off going, come for a drink, let's have a private chat. Not, let's find a place to ambush you with this in the public sphere, because I want to score public points to show how morally progressive I am. And that will be shown me higher because you go lower at that point. I know you'll probably push back, and so you'll dig yourself deeper and I'll go higher. I just think, a lot of good criticism and help can be done on the side through a back channel, not through the public channel. I do also think some things are good to be said publicly, because you don't care about that person suffering and pushing back. You just want to see them burn. I have no problem with seeing people burn. You just got to know that that's what you're going to do.
Yeah. And the ramifications of he who throws the first stone,
right?
It's significant, and we've got all this sort of virtue signaling now, and
sure,
extreme lefts and extreme right, and you can have in fact, you can have the conversation with those people, and then it is the pulling aside and let's discuss, and it's lovely when we discuss and we don't we disagree. But we have the discussion, and we go, I don't agree with you on that, but yeah, I can see your point of view. But there's so little room for that, it seems now.
Well, so I think things have been playing out over a number of years, purposely and unconsciously to pull the center out and drift right and left, in many cases to the extent where they are indistinguishable from each other.
Yes, as I always say, if you keep going left, you reach the right. It's just a circle.
Yeah, absolutely.
They
both meet each other in the middle.
And we grew up at a time. I mean, it was the Mary White.
We grew up during the third way,
right?
During Blair's politics, and Blair was the third way, and now that idea of the moderate, the third way, the down the middle, the trying to work with both sides,
balancing the stage,
balancing that is not. That's actually now seen as kind of morally repugnant.
Right.
And kowtowing to either the left or the right, whichever one the person accusing you of that is not on.
So you're a woke Nazi, basically.
Yes. Yeah. Well, not really that. No, you're just moderate. So you're not taking a side, and now is the time to take sides.
Right.
There's some nuanced ways of doing that. There's some subtle, powerfully subtle ways of taking those sides without reaching the pinnacle of left and right of autocracy.
Are we having a Killing Fields moment? Is this the new Khmer Rouge?
Well, I hope not, but no, I don't think it's that.
It feels like that.
I think yes, I think it does, because we might romanticize our moment.
Right.
It's very easy to. That's essentially what happens, I think, when people start likening, certain political figures and going, well, they're Nazi and they're this. It's like, you're romanticizing the reality.
Aren't we actually just destroying the word? The idea that
for sure, it's a very National Socialism and everything that came with that at that particular point in Germany needs to kind of stand alone as a moment to be not conflated.
Yes,
with other things that are not similar enough by any means. Are just not similar enough by any means, because it means you suddenly go, well, don't pay any attention to that because we got that happening right now. You haven't by any means got that happening right now, but I could see how it would cause you to feel very poignant and dramatic if you conflated the two, and it's romanticized. And we've had, since the end of the Second World War, we've had that whole area of life romanticized as much as it's been vilified.
Yeah, but we also have. There's some. You can see strains of. You can connect the beginning of, say, the National Socialism. You can see how it begins. That doesn't necessarily mean that reaches the point where you have the Nazis and the SS and that. So you can draw parallels in how the world moves. But I think what happens is then these words start. It's a bit like your mum telling you to clean your room and turning around and saying, "Well, you're a Nazi." Right. It doesn't. You don't understand the word. Just that's right. Nothing to do with it. And that's being called out a lot now.
Yeah. So I think, from my point of view, you got to be careful that you keep stuff at best analogous and not the same root of history, based on the idea, and it is an idea. It's a poetic idea. It's a truism that history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes, and so you're looking for the rhyming rather than the repeat. And if you keep looking for the repeats and going, well, this person is that person,
right,
you'll miss the rhyme,
right,
and you'll miss what poetry is being played on you. Mm-hmm. And I think you really got to get into the underlying poetry of what's being trying to be done, because there's some art going on there, and if you don't want the end product of it, you need to intervene in the art. Not cast out grand. They're not even analogies. They're accusations that aren't true.
Yeah, and the endless platitudes. We're just filled with platitudes now. Here's a quote, which it just means everything. This quote, and therefore it is. And you're like, right. What?
Yeah. So you get a lot of truisms and. Yeah, and you got to look into those. This book here, Truth and Lies.
So this is the latest. This is your latest.
This is the latest book. It's not so late because it's about a year and a half old.
Yeah.
but it's a book on critical thinking disguised as a book on body language, because the publishers asked for a book on body language, and I didn't really want to write one, and so because I didn't think it was that helpful, actually, books on reading body language, because first of all, body language isn't even a language, so it just doesn't make any, body language is a metaphor for nonverbal. And I thought most useful was a book on how you think better about people. How can you think more accurately about them, which is really about critical thinking. So really what we did is behind all the investigations into body language and how you can tell if somebody's thinking this, that, or the other, or really what we're helping people do is embed in themselves a critical thinking methodology so that they'll get closer to the truth around the people around them and help them get on with people better, get on with themselves a bit better as well, and not make ripping assumptions thinking they're the truth.
Right. This is what, your fourth book?
Fourth book. Yeah.
So,
fourth book.
So is there a lead into coming to this book, or are they individual? No,
they totally stand alone. They totally stand alone. First book I wrote was Winning Body Language, which would have much of the stuff that we'd have done together, back in the day.
Right.
But put within the context of how might you use that? How might you use your own behavior, your movement, and the control of that to influence and persuade others? Then I did Winning Body Language for Sales Professionals, which was just to put all of that specifically in a sales context. Then the third book I did, Tame the Primitive Brain, 28 Ways in 28 Days to Manage the Most Impulsive Behaviors at Work, is around how you manage yourself around other people that totally annoy you.
Right, that sounds useful.
Which is
that's
most everybody
people.
Some of the time.
Yeah, exactly.
and the idea of you can't change them, but you can change how you manage yourself around them. And what would be the 28-day process that would take you through an understanding of how our body works, how our brain works, how that is the same for everybody, how that functions within environments, so that you better understand yourself and through that others, and you can just manage yourself way better when things get tricky. So that was the third one, and the fourth one is Truth and Lies, which I described earlier, critical thinking book, really.
So it's an interesting thing, and I'd be interested to see where this kind of fits in, because it's the artist. The artist is insecure. We walk through life thinking, they think this. Yeah. That person, that casting director hates me. They fucking hate me. Or, that girl I met, she doesn't like me.
Yeah.
You make that assumption.
Yeah.
Based on nothing but your own.
Well, based on something.
Based on how you perceive the world, or how. Yeah,
the world happens in your head. Right. So ultimately, it happens in my head as well.
Our sunglasses that we put on.
How the world turns out in your head and turns out in my head may have some differences.
Mm-hmm.
We get on pretty well, so it actually has a lot of similarities. Else I'd spend this whole interview going, "What are you talking about?"
We just run out of conversation in about 2
we'd
minutes.
run out of conversation because I just wouldn't get it, and you wouldn't get me, and it just wouldn't work. Mm-hmm. So we can know that there are some things that show up the same for both of us, and we know there are going to be some differences.
Yeah.
But your world happens in your head and mine happens in mine, and it's full of assumptions. It's done by a best guess machine, not a knowledge machine.
Right. So you talk about how you deal with that.
Yeah. So how you manage yourself around that best guess machine. So first of all, we look at how does the guessing machine work?
Right.
Like, number one, why is it a guessing machine in the first place? Why doesn't it just hold knowledge?
Yeah.
Why does it hold a bunch of ways of making guesses?
Mm-hmm. And
then when it's made a guess, what does it do with that guess? Like, how much does it value its guessing? And what does it do when it's guessed wrong? What does it do when it's guessed right? What are these? What happens around all of that? Yeah, so that's the assumption, is it's a best guess machine responding to input, responding to its own guesses about its own input as well. I mean, we can think about ourselves thinking about ourselves.
Yeah.
That's like nothing else on the planet can manage that. It takes huge resource to do that perceptual positioning and meta modeling. It's crazy.
And it's a question of what we put our mind to versus assumption, or
so actually it turns out
actively, I mean, because it's an active thing, isn't it?
It turns out, I think, that what we have to do is understand how we're going to react to certain inputs, know that know that we're not going to change, okay,
right,
and then decide what we're going to do about that. Because look, if I know, whenever you talk about X, I react in a certain way, I get pissed off and angry with you, and we always have an argument.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I can either go down the, because when you talk about that, I predict X.
Yeah.
And the prediction of X is not good for me, and so I start a whole bunch of routine of behaviors to save myself in that thing. So I can either go, I wish Paul would never talk about X because it's not good.
Yeah.
And I might go, and I don't think he's being very authentic as well, just because that's a way of me couching that he pisses me off.
I hope you're thinking Jungly.
yeah, exactly.
You say that. Yeah.
Exactly. So I'll probably put some moral code on you that says, you're not being good when you talk about that. You're not being nice. You're not doing the right thing.
Yeah. So
I can either do that, which probably won't help because you're not going to change either. You like talking about X.
Yeah.
It's good for you. Yeah. Or I can go, look, I just need to, if Paul starts talking about X, because he will, I need to leave. Right. I need to go, oh, you know what? I'm not going to, or at least I need to go away for long enough that you stop needing to talk about that. And then we can get back together. Or I can say to you, so I can either I can go, I'm just never meeting Paul again. But there might be some downsides with that in that, the rest of the time we have together is really lovely.
Right.
It's just I wish you would never talk about X. And I keep on telling you and you don't change.
Yeah.
Because you never listen to me.
Yeah.
And
it's like you've been in hiding in my conversations. Yeah.
Right. Now, there's another thing, which is, so either I just go, it's going to happen, and I'm going to not be in the room when that happens, or because I'll never spend time with him, or I'll just go for the kind of period of time where that happens, and then I'll come back, because you can't sustain talking about that for very long anyway. And then, or I can go, you know what, Paul, just want to give you a bit of a understanding of how things work out for me. Whenever you talk about X, I feel like this, and I tend to get angry and pissed off, and we argue, and I've noticed this. And I can say, what do you want to do about that? And I can see whether you'd go, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
You never actually told me.
Yeah.
I thought you just enjoyed having an argument, and so that's why I bring it up all the time, because you seem to really, it's a really nice bit for me. I like having that argument every week. So that might happen, or you might go, well, nothing. I mean, that's what I'm going to do, and I might say, well, I'm not going to walk out of this situation. So just letting you know, we're kind of going to have an argument every week, and that's what's going to happen. And now we know.
Right.
Now we know what's going to happen.
But what about the part where you said you recognize that you are triggered into reacting a certain way?
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, if you recognize it, can you change that trigger? Aside from saying...
You could go away and unpack what that trigger is about, and you could go through some processes of maybe trying to desensitize yourself to that, or realize that the trigger is not is a useless trigger now, and this is the world of certain conditioning or psychoanalytical help. But if you like anybody who's spent any time in psychoanalysis, it takes years. It's like, meanwhile, we're having an argument every week.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So and that's what I found is that in business, people needed help right now, because they kept walking into the office with the same people day after day after day, and they haven't got 3 years to go through the process,
and they can't walk away.
They can't walk away. They can say, I'm not going to be in a meeting with you. And they could say things like, just want to give you, we used to call, I would call it the manual. Give them the manual. You say, look, I just want to give you the manual of how I work. When anybody talks about X, I get really annoyed and upset and angry, and I tend to argue with it. So I'm just letting you know that. So let's then they can do with that what they will, but it's not like you didn't tell them.
Yeah.
That's now everybody knows. Now it's explicit rather than this underlying thing that can't be talked about.
Yeah. So do you so with, I mean, the books one can get on Amazon, I assume that's where.
Yeah, all good book monopolies, of which Amazon is a prime example.
Or local bookshops, if they still exist.
Or local bookshops, go and order it from them and give them some money.
Yeah. It makes me think, and there's a couple of questions on this. It makes me think of my dad, who passed away, but he was a smoker.
Yeah.
And his physical trigger was the phone. It's great. So the phone ring, I mean, this is a very actory thing, I suppose, but then it ties into this. It's the observational aspect. And the classic thing is the phone rings, he picks up the phone, he then goes for his fag packet. That's cigarettes to the Americans. He takes out a cigarette, he's on the phone, and he lights the cigarette. And he had no conscious knowledge that he does that all the time.
Right.
Or he did that all the time.
Right.
And I pointed out to him, and then it was something he became aware of. I don't know how ready he was to unpack it and bring it on, but those physical triggers and bringing awareness to the fact that you do something allows you to change it.
Yeah. You know what I'd do with him? I would have tested with him if he'd said to me, Mark, can you help me stop smoking?
Yeah.
Is I'd have bought him a phone with a whole different ring, very different ring from the one that he had. And also it would just be a speakerphone. There would be no thing to see if not hearing the ring and going into that physical position would have stopped, countermeasured some of that trigger. I don't know whether it would, but that would have been my first piece of advice would be, why don't you go and, first piece of advice would be, don't answer the phone then. And of course he'd have said, well, how am I going to, and I'd go, oh yeah, you're right. Well, you got to, the price at the moment for talking with people is, lung disease. Yeah. So I totally get why you still want to talk to people, but I wonder if we can do it without paying that price.
Yeah.
And so I would have looked at that trigger of getting himself in that physical position, but it could have been that it's actually just talking to people and the comfort, and stimulation. It's like, why I'm talking to somebody I like, why not make it even better and have a cigarette?
But I always got that with doing hypnosis with people and magic and the hypnosis thing is interesting. It's only in fact, it's unpacking ideas as well. Quite often, it's just looking at habit, programming, what you do, and just taking you off that pull the rug, take away the expectation, and it was quite often women who would say that they don't smoke. I don't smoke except when I drink. Mm-hmm. It was quite a common thing, and I'd come across that in parties, and say, oh, why are you smoking? I don't really smoke. It's only when I have a drink. Well, how often do you drink? Well, quite a lot. You drink all the time, so you smoke all the time. Right. But it was this idea of association that I have my drink means I have a cigarette.
Right, and sometimes associate literal literal association, like I'm with somebody having a drink, they're smoking. Well, I want to be more associated with them, so I'll mirror them. I'll have a smoke as well.
Yeah.
That can often happen with social smokers.
Yes.
Where it's like, well, they haven't unpacked. I'm trying to be like everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing wrong with that. Like, who doesn't? We vacillate between trying to be, we're all individuals at the same time. I wish I was part of the group.
We want to be part of the pack. It was like in drama school days.
It's much safer to be part of the pack than it is to be an individual. At the same time, it's really lovely to be an individual as well. That's the great kind of, problem that we have. That's why that great Barnum statement of, you're at a party and, aren't you the person who, you do try and be the life and soul of the party and really try and socialize with people. At the same time, you feel like a real outsider. That's why that Barnum statement works for everybody, because that is the human condition of trying to be, of dealing with being social. At the same time, we have our own mind.
Yeah.
At the same time, we're not like other social mammals that aren't running around going, you know what, I'm an individual squirrel.
Yeah, it's you're the you've got a book in you. There's something about you that's thought about writing a book, but you just haven't really done it. There's a story there, isn't there? There's quite a story. You've thought of traveling, but sometimes you haven't. When you kind of want to, don't you?
Yeah.
And then you add nuance. And
I'll tell you a great one that I heard recently, which was the story of Ken Campbell's. And it's the story of Ken Campbell going to...
so Ken Campbell, just explain who Ken Campbell is.
Oh, so Ken Campbell, very famous, relatively famous, a British actor, but really revolutionized theatre in the 60s with the Ken Campbell Roadshow and the People Show. And she also involved Bob Hoskins and a whole bunch of luminaries at the time, doing basically theatre in pubs, taking theatre to the people. And a legendary maverick and just general lunatic. And I worked with Ken on a number of occasions. Again, working with Ken, there's all kinds of stories. Anyway, one of the stories is he tells me, he says, I went to see a medium the other night, and in a church, as you do, and the medium says there's somebody coming in, and it's for you, sir. And have you lost somebody at some point? And I said, yes, I have. I lost my wife, first wife. And they said, yes, well, she's coming in. And she says, there's something in the house that you were meant to put up, like some shelves or something, and it hasn't been done yet. And interestingly enough, there were some shelves that I had not as yet put up. And I said to her, that's absolutely right. There are some shelves that I have not put up. And she said, well, she wants you to know that it's okay. The story goes on because he said, and then she said, would I like to contact anybody from the dead? And I said, yes, I'd quite like to talk to Sir Laurence Olivier. And so she did make contact with Mr. Olivier, who actually came through with the full Richard III voice.
Amazing.
Robert. And she says, do you have any questions for Mr. Olivier? And I said, yes, I would like to ask Mr. Olivier, who in his view is the greatest actor that has ever lived? And Olivier came back without a beat saying, Jackie Chan. And since then, I've started collecting the complete works of Jackie Chan, and it turns out he actually is the greatest actor that has ever lived. Honestly, but go and watch Jackie Chan films. He is phenomenal. I mean, I'm sure you have. He's a phenomenon. He's just extraordinary.
Right.
There is nobody on the planet like Jackie Chan.
Yeah.
What
yeah. I don't know what to say to that. Yeah.
Anyway, what a great Barnum statement. There's something in the house that you meant to do and it hasn't got done.
It hasn't got done. Yeah. Wow.
Do you do Barnum statements like that in your act, or have you progressed to something a little more nuanced and
well, I did a thing.
Can you get away with that stuff?
I did a show, my stage show at the H Club in LA, which was an interesting experience, mainly because dealing with the events organizer there, who was a right pain in the ass.
Right.
But it was great fun. It was a great fun show. It put me under a lot of pressure. But there was I have a whole thing about psychics. So I do this whole there's a spiel I do about does anyone believe in psychics here? And people put their hands up, and then either the answer is yes or no, and it's like, well, I don't, or but I have a whole thing about going to a psychic in the show, where I say that there was this friend of mine who said you should go and see this friend of mine kept on saying I've got to go and see this psychic. This friend it wasn't my friend, it was my mum actually. My mum wanted me to see this psychic. So I go and see this psychic, and she says, "Oh, you used to be taller, you used to be shorter, didn't you?" Amazing, and on sunny days you're quite happy, aren't you? It's like, where do they get this stuff from?
Yeah.
And then she said, "But you used to play guitar. You play guitar?" And I said, "Yes." That's pretty generic. She said, "But you used to have a special guitar that's gone missing." And I've got music in the show, and I've got a guitar thing, and I say, "Yeah," because I did have a special guitar. And she said, "Yeah, it was a multicolored guitar." And I said, "Yeah, that's amazing." And she said, "Yeah, well," I said, "I used to have this cheap guitar. I used to busk, and it was terrible guitar, so I just colored it, all the different bits, different colors, because I thought that would be interesting." And it got lost, as you grow up, move out. It got put. I don't know what happened to it. And she said, "Well, I know all the colors." She said, "But we've run out of time. I tell you what, I'll draw it. I'll draw it for you. I'll send you a picture." So I've got an envelope with a question mark and this thing in it. And I get to the point where I do the revelation, and I go, and you've been holding on to that, and there's a prediction, and someone's come on stage and they've colored in the guitar randomly, and there's this prediction. And then I open up this is from the Psychic Sue, and I open it up and I look at it and I go, absolutely amazing. That is amazing. Every color wrong. And I scrumple it up and throw it away. And then there's other things that happen that take us on a different journey and back to that. But I kind of play with that idea and those the idea of the Barnum statements, the absolutism, the getting it wrong, the proving that psychics don't exist, and later we prove that they do.
Yeah.
But it's not my philosophy, and it's nice to play with those conceits, those ideas.
Are there still some people out there who are trying to convince people that they are really reading their minds?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then I did that. The funny thing was, I get a girl up on stage in that show, and she says, and I've done some other mind reading stuff, and she says, "Oh, I am a psychic," and she's on stage in my show, and we do the whole prediction thing. She says, "I'm the fourth or the third most famous psychic in LA. I work with the LA Rams," or I can't remember who she worked with. It was a list of really important people, and she was a lovely lady, and she was very pleasant and articulate, and but totally. And then she added validity to my show because I read her mind. So therefore, I'm a mind reader, and therefore psychics are real, and it works.
So you've read the mind of the
psychic.
Of the what did you say? She was the fourth most important psychic or something?
Fourth most important psychic in Los Angeles or in America, and she flies all over the place to do all this stuff, and she was amazed.
Right.
And
So you could be like psychic to the psychic.
psychic.
It's like even Tiger Woods needs a coach.
Yeah.
It's like even psychics need a psychic, and I am that psychic.
But it's great, and kind of what's interesting is it's in what you do and what you've been talking about, because in a sense, everything that you're talking about could be attributed to being psychic, but you're actually you
could con people with it if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Just, I'm rather like, I guess Ricky Gervais in that. Yeah, let me just align myself and liken myself to Ricky Gervais for a moment. In the, when he talks about evolution versus creationism, he's like, why do you need the story of creationism? Like, the story of evolution, it's good enough. It's got everything in it. It's got, it's wild and ridiculous enough. You don't need, another story. This truth and this science is like, it's totally riveting.
Yeah.
And it's the same for nonverbal influence and persuasion. You don't need like, I move in a certain way and the ether vibrates and like, we're passing vibrations, and it's just like, no, you have a mirroring system in your brain, and it constantly copies to get a sense of how much you like somebody else. And so it's trying to predict what's the survive, how good will life be with this person. It's trying to get theory of mind. Theory of mind is extraordinary enough without having to go, it's vibrations or it's intuition. It's like, well, it's intuition. No, what it is a prediction system, and that's amazing. Whereas intuition, I can't go in and touch. Like, don't mess around with people's intuition. Whereas prediction systems, it's like, that is amazing that we've got this prediction system running all the time, and it runs in the background. And when it gets a really strong sense, it also has a mechanism with it that convinces you that it's right. Mm-hmm. And you get this feeling of like, I think I know what's going on here. I think I've got it, and I don't know why, but it feels so right. It's like, yeah, it either is right or totally wrong or something in between, and you'll find out afterwards. And if you find out you're right, you'll go, wow, my intuition is like spot on. And if you find out you're wrong, you'll go, oh, man, I don't get the universe anymore. It's really weird. And all the rest of the times when you're averagely right or wrong, you'll just forget that you had this moment of intuition, because it didn't really matter. It didn't affect your world in any way. And that's extraordinary enough without going, well, some people are just very intuitive, aren't they? It's like, yeah, some people think they are.
I think I always talk about intuition as something that is experience, education, learned behaviour, all piled into one, informs your choices. Right. And therefore, if you have loads of that, you are likely to make good choices, or at least informed choices that follow a pattern.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes you'll make so intuition is designed to make quick choices to your benefit right now.
Yeah.
And it wants to be safe today, accurate tomorrow. That's all.
Yeah.
That's the system.
Yeah.
So therefore you know that your intuition has a bias, mm-hmm. which is its bias towards keeping you safe.
Yeah.
Not giving you a wild experience, or having you end up in the middle of nowhere, without a paddle, no cash, going, wow, fantastic. What an adventure. It's not designed for that.
Yeah. No.
And the next day it can think about it and go, actually, if I'd gone against my intuition, I would have ended up at that really cool event that actually turned out to change some people's lives, but I never went there because it just didn't feel right.
Yeah, but and it's kind of here in the lead up to the pandemic, there was the week before everything closed down, and the Magic Castle was still open, and it was kind of, people were going, and some people were saying, it's not a good idea, and I didn't go that week. And some people would go, well, that was very intuitive of you to know. Well, it wasn't. It just
cautious.
It was
It's very
cautious.
cautious.
Just wasn't- you stick your hand in a fire enough times, you go, you know what? I was so wise. There was this fire. I didn't put my hand in it.
Right.
I don't know where that came from. It was just,
Right.
I just intuitively knew not to stick my hand in the fire.
Right, you've got a pattern that says every time you do that, it's not good.
Yeah, and it brings me to the idea of also tension. I don't know if that fits into things. Panic, tension, fear, which kind of probably encapsulates what a lot of people are going through at the moment. When faced with a scenario, we freeze because we panic, we tense, we're fearful, and now the brain can't operate.
Sure.
So we're paralyzed. Whereas when we learn to see those things, say, oh, yeah, this is frightening, but I'm going to breathe. I'm going to let me just relax at this moment. Now I can deal with it. It's the car coming towards you. You can either freeze in the street going, shit, there's a car coming towards me, or you go, car coming towards me, breathe. Let me carry on moving and deal with the theory after.
Right. Well, yes. I mean, we've got a reflex whereby if you get sudden movement in peripheral vision, you'll step back. You'll move back. And the idea is that whatever was in peripheral vision will come into better vision for a start. And so, yeah, you should have an instinct when a fast-moving object comes into your peripheral vision that you step back. And that tends to happen a lot on streets with cars.
Right.
You end up stepping back onto the pavement. Yeah, and you wouldn't want to critically think that moment because the reflex has saved your life more times than you can remember. And
you talk about the lizard brain in one of your books.
So the reptilian brain, primitive brain, R complex. There's lots of names for it. Paleo-mammalian brain. It's basically the brain stem, and it's where we have all these a lot of reflexes are in there. Reflexes which are designed for our own safety. Yeah. And those it can detect patterns in there that would be part of our, in inverted commas, intuition, where we make very quick decisions and then after the fact go, wow, that was super intuitive. I felt that. I felt it was odd, that dark alley, and so I didn't go down there. I backed out immediately. It turns out somebody was murdered there that night. Yeah. Wow. It's like, no, you got a reflex around darkness and light. We look to the light. We move away from the darkness. This brain was evolved being hunted by a big cat on the plains of Africa. Like when it gets dark, don't be out unless you can make fire.
Exactly.
Even then, don't be out.
I'm conscious though of time. We've been going for quite a while. How you fix for time now? Yeah,
I mean, I should at some point. I should think about getting back to
to real life,
back to life. So yeah, maybe we should wrap up.
So I've seen. So you work with Tracy, your wife. Yes. You co-wrote the book together.
Yes.
And obviously, it's a good working relationship. I mean, you've done a lot of stuff together.
It takes work and it's hard, just like, marriage and everything else. But yes, it works for sure.
Yeah. And I've seen on LinkedIn, you do quite a few, well, they've popped up on LinkedIn. I assume they're on YouTube. But you do some really, really good little videos where you'll dissect an idea about a preconception, perhaps, about body language.
Yeah. So if you go to my LinkedIn not LinkedIn channel, if you go to my YouTube channel, Mark Bowden, just put Mark Bowden into YouTube and up I'll come and hit on the channel. You'll find the Truth and Lies series, which are some lovely little short videos with me and Tracy, just unpacking some of the myths that are out there. Like when somebody looks up into whatever way they're lying or what have you, and some of that stuff. How much of a myth is that? How accurate is any of that? They scratch their nose, they're lying. Folded arms is always bad. Yeah. I mean, some of the stuff that some of the important stuff that it's easy for us to install in our mind as a good prediction. And we just want to help people critically think that and go, well, are there some instances where it would be a good prediction? And are there some instances when it would be a really bad prediction? Is it just a bit of a myth and a truism and unhelpful? How helpful is any of that? So yeah, get yourself over those videos because they're great fun and really helpful.
And the latest ones I saw with you were with a few other people and you were dissecting politicians and...
Yeah, so you'll find that at the behaviour channel, behaviourpanel.com or on YouTube at the Behaviour Panel channel.
Right.
Just put the Behaviour Panel into the internet and it'll come up. But we've it's a great group of people who I've known for a number of years now. Scott Rouse, Greg Hartley, Chase Hughes, and myself. We all come from relatively different backgrounds, but we've all ended up in a similar area of using nonverbal communication to influence and persuade, and also to analyze. Two of the guys have been military interrogators and trainers around interrogation and resistance to interrogation. We've also got an interrogator who trains police and army. And me, who does not own a weapon,
right,
and has not, to my knowledge, cable-tied anybody,
right,
stuck a bag over their head and specially rendered them somewhere else on the planet.
Although it's not on video, that's basically...
Yeah. But one of the guys was part of the team that waterboarded Christopher Hitchens.
Really?
So, yeah, he didn't last long. At all.
Was that a voluntary thing?
Yes, he did. So Hitchens was an advocate, or certainly felt that waterboarding was okay. Because he believed it got certain information and it wasn't that bad.
Right.
I don't know who he heard that from.
His brother, probably.
Yeah. That's not that bad. So Vanity Fair, who he was a columnist for at the time, said, "Okay, well, would you go and have it done? Because we know there's a group of guys who are ex-military who'll do this to you." And Greg was, I believe, running that group of guys at the time because he was training others in how to use these, how to resist. Essentially, these techniques. He wasn't training them as here's what you should do. He was training people as here's what is likely to be done to you and here's how you resist. So they did that, and he doesn't last very long, and it's awful because you're drowning. So
he changed his perspective.
He instantly. Well, this is what happens with torture. is that you change your perspective unless you have the techniques to resist.
Right.
You change your perspective in a shorter time than any other way of changing a perspective.
Yeah.
It reknits the neurons on your brain because your brain goes, we're dying. So let's think differently about this.
We need to give them whatever they want.
It's whatever the ideology is, we're all for it.
We're on board.
We're on board.
Well, on that bombshell of torture and persuasion, I think that's a perfect time to wrap this up.
There's never been a better time.
It's been an absolute joy. Lovely
Always
to see
pleasure.
you. Yeah,
Good
great.
to see you.
Great
Good
chat.
to see you. Good form.
Yeah. And I hope. I hope to get over to Canada at some point.
You will do at some point. They'll open up the airways at some point and get yourself over and say hello. And next time I'm in LA, it happens now and again.
Yeah.
In fact, there may be a project coming up that may get me over there. So, which I cannot talk about, but.
Well, if you need someone,
but I'll just lay it in there as some kind of exciting thing that people will go, I wonder what that's going to be.
Yeah, there's always something. And if you need someone who pretending to be a body expert, body language expert, I'm here.
Yes.
To deal with the overflow.
Yeah.
All right,
absolutely.
Mark. We'll end it there. Thanks a lot. Lots
Good
of
to
love
see
to you and the family.
Lots of love to you, my friend.
All right. Take care.
We'll catch you around.
Bye now.
Bye now.